Truck driver rescues pregnant dog tied up on the highway shoulder. She was crying without hope. Mike Johnson slammed the brakes of his Peterbilt when he spotted something odd on the shoulder of the highway. It was a yellow dog, her belly, swollen with pregnancy, tied to a signpost. The animal was whimpering softly, a sound that broke his heart. At 52, Mike had seen plenty of awful things on American highways, but this hit him differently. The Labrador lifted her sad eyes as he approached, as if begging for help. She was clearly in her final days of pregnancy. "Who did this to you, girl?" Mike murmured, crouching slowly so as not to scare her. The rope was so tight around her neck, it had left marks on her skin. Mike tried to untie her, but the knot was too hard. He went back to his truck to grab a knife, but when he returned, the dog had backed away as far as the rope allowed, trembling with fear. "Easy now, I'm here to help," he said, reaching out. It took nearly an hour to earn her trust. Mike offered water from his bottle, which she drank desperately, and a leftover sandwich from lunch. Only then could he get close enough to cut the rope. Once free, the dog staggered and nearly collapsed. She was too weak to walk. Mike carried her to the truck, feeling the weight of her enormous belly. She didn't resist, as if she knew he was trying to save her. "Now I need to get you somewhere safe," Mike said, settling her into the passenger seat. But where? Mike lived alone in a small apartment in Columbus, upstate New York. The building didn't allow pets. His ex-wife, Debbie, had taken everything in the divorce 5 years ago, including the house where they could have sheltered the dog. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to the story. On the drive, Mike called his brother Bob, who lived on a ranch outside the city. "Bob, I need your help. I found a pregnant dog abandoned on the road." "Mike, are you crazy? I can't take in an animal right now. Sharon already chewed me out over the 3 cats I picked up. It's just for a few days, till she has the puppies and I figure something out." "The answer's no, find somewhere else." Mike tried calling other friends, but everyone had an excuse. Some were allergic, others didn't like animals, and the few who did had no space. When he reached Columbus, Mike drove straight to a vet. Clinic he knew. The vet, Dr. Stephen, examined the dog. "She's malnourished and dehydrated. Judging by the size of her belly, she'll give birth in 2 or 3 days. She needs constant care." "How much to keep her here?" $500 a day plus delivery and meds. It could go over $3,000. Mike did the math in his head. His salary as an independent trucker barely covered his truck payments and basic expenses. He couldn't afford it. "Doc, can I take her home and bring her back if there's trouble?" "I don't recommend it. She needs medical supervision." Even so, Mike took the dog to his apartment. The building's doorman, Frank, saw him carrying her inside. "Mike, you know you can't bring that animal up." "Just for tonight, Frank. I'll figure something out tomorrow. If the superintendent finds out, you'll be in trouble." Mike carried the dog, who weighed over 60 pounds, up to the 5th floor. In the elevator, he ran into Gertrude, a neighbor famous for complaining about everything. "What is this nonsense, Mike? Pets aren't allowed here." "It's an emergency." "Gertrude, she's pregnant and was abandoned." "I don't care. I'll talk to the building manager right now." Mike Johnson arrived at the apartment sweating and worried. He improvised a bed for the dog with old blankets on the living room floor. She lay down heavily, panting. Mike noticed her paws were swollen. An hour later, the building manager, Karen, knocked on the door. "Mike, we've received a complaint. You have 24 hours to remove the animal, or we'll take legal action." "Karen, she's about to have puppies any moment. I can't move her now." "Not my problem. The condo rules are clear." Mike stayed up all night watching the dog. She was breathing heavily and moving restlessly. At 3 in the morning, she began whimpering softly. Mike realized labor had started. Desperate, he called Dr. Stephen, who answered reluctantly. "Mike, I told you she needed to stay at the clinic. Bring her here immediately." "Doc, I can't afford hospitalization." "Then you'll have to manage. I'm on duty at the animal hospital." "I can't leave." Mike was left alone with the dog, who was now whimpering louder. He'd helped a cow give birth on his grandfather's farm as a boy, but that was over 40 years ago. The first puppy was born at 4 in the morning. The dog whom Mike had started calling Daisy because of her color, instinctively licked the little one clean. Mike sighed in relief, but his joy was short-lived. The second puppy was Breach. Daisy strained but couldn't push it out. Mike tried to help with clean hands, vaguely remembering what he'd seen on the farm. After an hour of struggle, he positioned the puppy correctly. When the third puppy was born lifeless, Mike felt a pang in his chest. Daisy sniffed the still little body and began a low whine that broke the trucker's heart. The fourth puppy was born healthy, but Daisy was too exhausted to clean it. Mike had to do it with a towel, stimulating the tiny animal's breathing. By 6 in the morning, Daisy had given birth to 5 puppies. 3 were alive and healthy, nursing eagerly. Mike discreetly removed the 2 that hadn't survived, to spare the mother further distress. Exhausted, Mike dozed off for 2 hours. He woke to furious knocking. It was Karen, the building manager, with 2 men. "Mike, time's up. These gentlemen are from the city's animal control." "Wait, Karen. The dog had puppies overnight. I can't move her now. Not our problem. Either you remove the animals or we will." One of the city men, who seemed more understanding, assessed the situation. "Sir, it really is dangerous to move the puppies now. They're only hours old." "Then he gets 24 more hours," said Karen. "After that, the animals will be taken." Mike spent the day trying to find a solution. He called all his contacts again, scoured the internet for NGOs that could help, but found nothing. In the afternoon, his brother Bob showed up at the apartment. "Came to see this dog you picked up." Bob was 2 years younger than Mike, but had always been the more practical brother. When he saw Daisy nursing the puppies, his heart softened. "All right, you can take her to the ranch, but only until you find another place." "Thanks, Bob. You're saving their lives. One condition, though. Sharon can't know it was my idea. You'll have to convince her." Mike had known Sharon for 15 years. She had a big heart, but was also very practical. She didn't like unnecessary expenses or complications. "Sharon, it's just temporary, until the puppies grow a little." "Mike, you know how hard it is to keep up that ranch. We don't have extra money for food and vet bills. I'll cover all the expenses. I just need a place for them to stay." Sharon looked at Daisy, who was clearly still weak from giving birth, and at the tiny blind puppies nursing. "All right, but if they cause any trouble, you're out right away." Mike Johnson improvised a safe transport for Daisy and the puppies. He used a large box lined with blankets and drove slowly to the ranch, which was about 30 kilometers from Columbus. The property, owned by siblings Bob and Sharon, covered 5,000 square meters, with a simple house, a barn, and plenty of green space. It was the perfect place for Daisy to recover. Mike settled the canine family in the barn, which was clean and dry. Daisy seemed more relaxed in the peaceful environment, and the puppies nursed with more appetite. "They'll be fine here," said Mike, stroking Daisy. But his peace didn't last long. On the second day at the ranch, one of the puppies started to weaken. It couldn't nurse properly and cried constantly. Mike took the puppy to Dr. Stephen, who did a quick examination. "He has hypoglycemia. He might not be able to compete with his siblings for his mother's milk." "What can I do?" "Artificial feeding every 2 hours. There are special bottles for puppies and the right powdered milk. It'll cost about $200 a month." Mike bought the supplies and began feeding the weaker puppy by hand. Every 2 hours, day and night, he prepared the bottle and fed the little animal. The lack of sleep started affecting his work. Mike dozed off in the truck and nearly caused an accident on Interstate 95. His boss, George, called him in for a talk. "Mike, you look like you haven't slept in days. Everything okay?" Mike explained the situation to George, who listened patiently. "Look, Mike, I get it, but I can't risk you causing an accident. I'll give you a week of unpaid leave to sort this out." A week without pay was a hard blow. Mike did the math and realized he wouldn't have enough money to cover the truck payment at the end of the month. That same week, Sharon started complaining about the extra work the dogs were causing. "Mike, I can't keep cleaning up puppy poop every day. And Daisy's digging holes in my garden. Sharon, they're just puppies. In a few weeks, they'll be bigger." "A few weeks? You said it would only be a couple of days." Mike realized he needed to find a permanent solution fast. He started looking for people interested in adopting the puppies, but found that finding responsible homes was harder than he'd imagined. The first interested person came through an ad Mike posted online. It was a man named Travis, who said he wanted a puppy for his son. "How much do you want for the puppies?" Travis asked. "I'm not selling, I'm giving them to responsible homes." "Oh, then I'm not interested. I wanted to buy a purebred anyway." Mike realized many people only wanted expensive or purebred animals. Daisy's puppies were mixed breeds, which made adoption harder. The second interested person was a woman named Evelyn, who seemed genuinely caring. "I've always had dogs. My last one passed 6 months ago and I've been so lonely." Mike got excited and arranged for Evelyn to meet the puppies. She fell in love with a small brown male. "He's perfect. When can I take him?" "Evelyn, they're still nursing. You'll have to wait about 3 more weeks." 3 weeks? Can't wait that long. I'll look somewhere else. Mike began to understand that people wanted immediate solutions. Few were willing to wait for the puppies to develop properly. Meanwhile, the weakest puppy still needed constant artificial feeding. Mike was exhausted, spending all his money on special milk and bottles. One night, while feeding the puppy at 3 in the morning, he got an unexpected call. It was Debbie, his ex-wife. "Mike, I heard you're taking care of a dog and her puppies. How did you find out?" Bob told Sharon, who told her sister, and she's a friend of mine. Mike sighed. In a small town, news traveled fast. "So what? I wanted to propose something. I'm living in a house with a yard now. I can take the dog and 1 puppy." Mike was suspicious. Debbie had never liked animals much. "Why would you do that?" "Because I know you're killing yourself taking care of them, and because I still care about you." It was a tempting offer, but Mike knew Debbie. She always had ulterior motives. "I'll think about it." "Mike, I have one condition. You lend me $10,000 to fix up the house. Consider it dog support." There it was, the real intention. Debbie wanted money and was using the dogs as an excuse. "I don't have that kind of money, Debbie." "Then the dogs aren't welcome here." Mike hung up, frustrated. Every attempt to solve the situation ran into new problems. The next morning, he found Sharon crying in the kitchen. "What happened?" "Princess destroyed my rose garden. She dug holes in all the plants I spent years growing." Mike went to see the damage. Sure enough, Princess had dug several large holes in Sharon's garden, ruining expensive, well-tended rose bushes. "Sharon, I'll pay to replant everything." "It's not just about the money, Mike. Those roses were from my mother. Some were over 10 years old." Mike realized he'd lost the last safe place for the dogs. Sharon was genuinely hurt, and he couldn't blame her. "How much time can you give me to find another place?" 1 week, said Bob, who had just arrived. "I'm sorry, Mike, but Sharon's right." Mike knew a week wouldn't be enough. The puppies were still too young to be separated from their mother, and he didn't have the money for a pet hotel. Desperate, Mike decided to try something drastic. He took Princess and the puppies back to his apartment, hoping the building manager wouldn't find out. He managed to sneak in unseen, but Mrs. Gertrude caught him in the hallway. "Mike, you're breaking the building rules again." "Mrs. Gertrude, please, just a few more days. I'm calling the manager right now, and this time I'll make sure you're fined." Karen arrived in 15 minutes, furious. "Mike, you're deliberately ignoring the rules. I'm issuing a $1,000 fine and giving you 24 hours to remove the animals." "Karen, I have nowhere to take them." "That's not my problem. If they're not gone, I'll call City Hall to collect them." Mike knew if the dogs went to the city pound, they'd be put down in a few days. He couldn't let that happen after everything they'd been through together. That night, Mike had a desperate idea. He called his cousin Gary, who lived in a small town 200 miles away. "Gary, I need a huge favor." "Name it, cuz." "Can I bring a dog and 3 puppies to stay at your place for a while?" "Mike, I have a ranch, but I don't know anything about dogs, and my wife's scared of big animals. It's just temporary, until I find a permanent solution. I'll try talking to Nancy, but no promises." The next day, Gary called back. "Mike, Nancy agreed, but they have to stay far from the house at the back of the property, and you have to come take care of them on weekends." It was a temporary fix, but Mike had no choice. He prepared his Peterbilt for the long drive with Princess and the puppies. The trip was traumatic. The puppies cried the entire trip, and Daisy grew anxious without understanding what was happening. Mike stopped several times to give the animals water and comfort. When they arrived at Gary's property, Mike realized the back of the property was really far. The chosen spot was 500 yards from the house near a creek. "This is where they'll stay," said Gary. "There's running water and shade from the trees." Mike improvised a shelter with a tarp and wood he found on site. It wasn't comfortable, but it was better than nothing. "Gary, thank you for helping. I'll come every weekend to take care of them." "Mike, I have to be honest, I can't guarantee how long they can stay. If they cause any trouble with the neighbors or scare the cattle on the next property over, they'll have to go." Mike drove back to Columbus with a heavy heart. Leaving Daisy and the puppies in that makeshift place wasn't what he wanted, but it was all he had. During the week, Mike worked desperately to make up for lost time. He took extra hauls, worked late. Nights, all to save money and fix the situation with the dogs. The first weekend, when he arrived at Gary's property, he found a disheartening scene. Daisy was clearly stressed, pacing back and forth. One of the puppies had diarrhea, likely from the change in environment. "How were they during the week?" Mike asked. "Daisy barked a lot the first few nights," Gary said. "The neighbors already complained, and yesterday she ran off. Took me 2 hours to find her." Mike realized Daisy was trying to get back to Columbus. She didn't understand why she'd been abandoned again after everything they'd been through. "Gary, can I build a fence so they don't run away?" "You can try. But if the barking keeps bothering people, you'll have to figure something else out." Mike spent the whole weekend building a makeshift fence with wire mesh he bought in town. It cost $400 he didn't have, but it was necessary. When he finished, he realized he'd created a prison for the dogs. Daisy looked at him with sad eyes, as if asking why she was being punished. "I'm sorry, girl, it's just until I find a better solution," Mike murmured, petting her. The following week, Mike stepped up his search for adopters. He made profiles on social media, printed flyers, and posted them around town. A few interested people came forward, but all had issues. One woman only wanted females, another only males. A guy wanted a puppy for fighting, which Mike refused immediately. The first successful adoption was with a family named Smith. They had 2 young kids and wanted a puppy to grow up with the boys. "He'll be very loved," the mother, Mrs. Rachel, assured. Mike was emotional handing over the first puppy, a small, playful female the Smiths named Princess. But when he returned to Gary's property the next weekend, he got a call from Mrs. Rachel. "Mike, we need to return Princess. What happened? She bit my youngest son. We can't take the risk." Mike was confused. Puppies that age don't bite aggressively. "Mrs. Rachel, puppies nip when they play. It's normal. It doesn't matter. We don't want the dog anymore." Mike had to pick Princess up. The little one was clearly confused and scared from so many changes. The second adoption attempt was even worse. A man named Richard took one of the males, promising to care for him. 3 days later, Mike got a call from the vet clinic. "Mr. Mike, someone brought in a puppy saying it's yours. The dog is dehydrated and shows signs of neglect." Mike rushed to the clinic and found the puppy in terrible shape. Richard had been away from home for 3 days and left the animal without food or water. "How can someone be so irresponsible?" Mike asked the veterinarian. "Unfortunately, it's common. Many people want puppies on impulse but aren't prepared for the responsibility." Mike paid $200 for the puppy's treatment and took it back to Daisy. Now he had 3 puppies again, with no prospects for responsible adoption. To make matters worse, Gary called in the middle of the week. "Mike, the neighbors are threatening to call City Hall. They said the barking is disturbing their cattle. But the dogs are fenced in, far from everything." "It doesn't matter. They want the animals gone in a week." Mike felt despair taking over. He was out of options and money. The truck payment was overdue, and the bank had sent a foreclosure notice. That night, Mike seriously considered taking the dogs to a municipal shelter, even though he knew they'd be euthanized. It was a decision that would destroy him, but maybe it was the sensible thing to do. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Before making that drastic decision, Mike decided to try one last thing. He remembered Margaret Wilson, a retired veterinarian he'd met years ago. She had a farm where she cared for abandoned animals. Mike found Margaret's number and called, explaining the whole situation. "Mike, I remember you. Your story touched me deeply." "Margaret, I know it's a lot to ask, but I'm out of options. I can help, but I have to be honest. My farm is overcrowded. I have 42 dogs and 16 cats. I don't have the resources for 4 more animals. Margaret, they'll be euthanized if I don't find a solution. Let me think. Maybe I can arrange temporary space, but you'll have to help with food and vet bills." It was a light at the end of the tunnel. Mike agreed to all of Margaret's conditions. That weekend, Mike went to pick up Daisy and the puppies from Gary's ranch. Daisy seemed to understand they were moving again and was restless the whole trip. Margaret's farm was in an even more distant town, 300 miles from Columbus. The trip took 4 hours, with several stops for the puppies to relieve themselves. When they arrived at the farm, Mike was amazed. Margaret had turned 5 acres into a true sanctuary for abandoned animals. There were organized kennels, a play area, and even an improvised veterinary clinic. "This place is incredible," Mike said. "It's the result of 15 years of work," Margaret replied. "I started with 2 dogs and couldn't stop helping." Margaret was 68, with graying hair and a kind gaze. Despite her age, she had the energy to care for all those animals with the help of 2 employees. "Daisy and the puppies will stay in this kennel," Margaret said, showing a clean, airy space. "But Mike, you need to understand something. I can't keep them forever. You have 3 months to find adopters or another solution." 3 months. Seemed like a long time, but Mike knew it would be a challenge. He started visiting the farm every weekend, helping Margaret with the care and searching for adopters for Daisy and the puppies. During his visits, Mike learned Margaret had her own struggles. The farm relied on donations that weren't always enough. Margaret spent her entire retirement on food and medicine. "Margaret, how do you manage all this? It's not easy. Sometimes I go days eating just bread so I can afford food for them." Mike was deeply moved by Margaret's dedication. He started contributing not only to Daisy's expenses and the puppies, but also to the upkeep of the farm. 2 weeks later, a different interested party showed up. It was Mark, a young businessman who had lost his dog in an accident and was looking for a new companion. "I want a pet for my family. We have a big house with a yard and lots of love to give." Mike Johnson felt hopeful. Mark seemed sincere and responsible. He visited the farm with his wife, Patricia, and their 2 young children. "We want Daisy," said Patricia. "She has such a sweet look in her eyes. And we'd like a puppy too," Mark added. Mike was happy, but Margaret was more cautious. "Let's do a trial period. You can take 1 puppy first. If everything goes well in a month, we'll talk about Daisy." The family took Princess, the female puppy who had already been returned once. Mike spent the whole week anxious, hoping this time it would work out. Mark sent pictures of the puppy every day. Princess was clearly happy, playing with the kids and exploring the family's large backyard. After 2 weeks, Mark called with unexpected news. "Mike, Princess is pregnant." "What? She's only 3 months old." The vet confirmed it. Apparently, she mated with a neighborhood dog. Mike was devastated. Princess was too small for a pregnancy. It could be dangerous for her and the puppies. "Mark, do you want to return her?" "On the contrary, we'll take care of her and the future puppies. We've already grown very attached." It was good news, but now Mike worried about Princess's health. An early pregnancy could cause serious complications. The following weekend, when he visited the farm, Mike noticed Daisy was depressed. She wasn't eating properly and spent the day lying down, staring at the spot where Princess used to be. "She's missing the puppy," Margaret explained. Mother dogs have very strong emotional bonds with their pups. Mike tried to cheer Daisy up with extra playtime and affection, but she remained downcast. The 2 male puppies also seemed less active. A week later, Margaret called urgently. "Mike, you need to come here right away. Daisy is very sick." Mike cancelled a work trip and rushed to the farm. He found Daisy weak, struggling to breathe. "What happened?" "She hasn't eaten in 3 days. She's showing signs of severe canine depression." Mike took Daisy to the nearest veterinary clinic. The vet ran several tests. She's malnourished and dehydrated, but the main issue is emotional. She's depressed, likely from the stress of the past few months. What can I do? She needs to return to a familiar environment with people she knows, and she needs lots of love and attention. Mike made a decision that would change his life completely. He took Daisy back to his apartment, determined to face any consequences. This time, Mike was smarter. He spoke first with Frank, the doorman. "Frank, I need your help. Daisy is sick and needs to stay with me for a while." "Mike, you know the rules." "I do, but if I don't take care of her, she could get much worse." Frank looked at Daisy, who was clearly unwell, and his heart softened. "All right, but be discreet. If someone complains, there's nothing I can do." Mike managed to sneak Daisy upstairs unseen. In the apartment, he set up a comfortable spot for her and offered food and water. Daisy ate a little for the first time in days, and Mike felt a surge of joy. Maybe there was hope. That night, Mike slept on the floor beside Daisy so she wouldn't feel alone. By morning, she seemed a little livelier, but the peace didn't last long. Gertrude caught Mike taking Daisy for a quick walk in the building's yard. "Mike, you're breaking the rules again." "Mrs. Gertrude, Daisy is sick. It's just temporary. I don't care. I'm talking to the building manager right now." An hour later, Karen was at Mike's apartment door, angrier than ever. "Mike, this time you've gone too far. I'm filing an eviction lawsuit." "Karen, please. Daisy is sick." "I can prove it with a vet's note." "I don't want to hear it. You have until the end of the day to remove the animal, or I'll call City Hall and the courts." Mike was cornered. He couldn't let Daisy get sick again, but he also couldn't lose his apartment. That afternoon, he got an unexpected call from Mark. "Mike, Princess lost her puppies. The vet said she was too small for the pregnancy. How is she?" "Physically, she'll be fine, but she's very depressed. The vet suggested having her mother around might help her recover emotionally." It was the opportunity Mike had been waiting for. If Daisy went to Mark's house to help Princess, it would solve two problems at once. "Mark, would you be willing to take Daisy too? We'd have to talk it over as a family. It's a big responsibility. Please consider it. Daisy really needs a permanent home." Mark promised to give an answer in 2 days. Meanwhile, Mike had to keep Daisy hidden in the apartment. On the second day, Mrs. Gertrude caught Mike buying dog food at the building's market. "Mike, you're mocking us. Everyone knows you have a dog up there." Mike tried to deny it, but it was useless. Mrs. Gertrude had turned into a real detective, watching his every move. That night, Mike received a court summons. Karen had filed for eviction for breaking the building's rules. Desperate, Mike called Mark. "Mark, I need an answer now. I'm being evicted because of Daisy." "Mike, we talked as a family. We want to help, but we can't keep Daisy permanently. Our house isn't big enough for 2 adult dogs." "What about temporarily?" "We can try for a month, just so you can sort out the legal situation." It was better than nothing. Mike took Daisy to Mark's house the next day. The reunion between Daisy and Princess was emotional. The two recognized each other immediately and stuck together. Princess, who had been depressed since losing her puppies, started eating and playing again. They really needed each other, Patricia observed. Mike was relieved to see Daisy happy again. But he knew he only had a month to find a permanent solution. During that month, Mike stepped up his search for a forever home for Daisy. He created posts on all social media, made videos showing how gentle and loving she was, and even paid to boost the posts. Several people showed interest, but there was always a problem. Some wanted to pay for her, others had very young children, and many lived in small apartments. Things got worse when Mark found out he was being transferred to another city for work. "Mike, we're moving in 3 weeks. We can't take Daisy and Princess, but you can't separate them now. They're so happy together." "I know, but I have no choice. In the new city, we'll be in a temporary apartment until we find a house." Mike was out of options again. He went back to Margaret's farm to ask for help, but got discouraging news. "Mike, I'm going through a serious financial crisis. 3 of my biggest donors canceled their contributions. I'll have to reduce the number of animals here." What does that mean?" "It means I can't take Daisy back. I'm already having to give away some animals that have been here for years." Mike felt his world crumbling. All options had been exhausted, and he had neither time nor money. Left that night, Mike made the hardest decision of his life. He called the city pound. "I'd like information about surrendering a dog for adoption. Sir, I need to warn you that our adoption window is only 15 days. After that, the animal is humanely euthanized." Mike hung up the phone in tears. He couldn't bear the thought of Daisy being put down after everything they'd been through together. He decided to try one last desperate option. He called every TV and radio station in the area, telling Daisy's story and asking for help to find her a home. A local radio show took interest in the story and interviewed Mike live. "Mike, tell our listeners how this all started." Mike recounted the entire journey, from the moment he found Daisy tied up on the highway to their current situation. His voice broke several times as he spoke. "She just needs a family who will love her. Daisy is a gentle, affectionate dog who gives so much love in return for a little care." The interview touched many hearts. The show received dozens of calls from people wanting to help. The first call Mike answered was from an elderly woman named Judith. "Mike, I live alone on a ranch and have always had dogs. I can take Daisy." Mike felt hopeful, but wanted to meet Judith in person before deciding. Judith was 75, had lived alone since becoming a widow and truly loved animals. Her ranch was perfect, large, fenced with plenty of space for Daisy to run. "Can I visit whenever I want?" Mike asked. "Of course, you'll always be welcome here." Mike took Daisy to meet Judith. The meeting went perfectly. Daisy approached the woman without fear, and Judith welcomed her with genuine warmth. "She'll have a happy life here," Judith assured him. But just as Mike was about to leave Daisy at the ranch, Mark called with unexpected news. "Mike, I've changed my mind. We're taking Daisy and Princess to the new city." "What do you mean?" "Patricia and the kids got so attached to both of them that we can't imagine life without them. We'll rent a house with a yard from the start." Mike was torn. Daisy was happy with Judith, but the chance to stay with Princess was tempting too. "Mark, can I have some time to think?" "Of course, but I need an answer by tomorrow." Mike spent the night awake, wrestling with the hardest decision of his life. Judith offered Daisy a peaceful life full of love. Mark offered the chance for her to stay with her daughter. By morning, Mike had made his choice. He took Daisy to Mark's house where she could be with Princess. "Daisy will be happy here," Mike said, petting her one last time. The two dogs seemed to understand they'd be together forever. They played in the yard as Mike said goodbye with a broken heart. 3 months later, Mike received a photo on his phone. It showed Daisy and Princess playing with Mark's kids in their new home with a huge backyard. "They're the queens of the house," Mark wrote in the message. Mike smiled through his tears. Daisy hadn't just found a home, she'd found a whole family. The 2 male puppies still at Margaret's farm also found loving homes thanks to the radio story's impact. Bob was adopted by an elderly couple who'd always wanted a dog. Thunder went to a family with teenagers who fell in love with him. Mike returned to his life as a trucker, but now with a new purpose. On every trip, he scanned the sides of the American highways for abandoned animals. 6 months after rescuing Daisy, Mike found another abandoned animal, a wounded kitten on the shoulder of the road. Without hesitation, he pulled over and saved it. This time, Mike knew exactly what to do. He called Margaret directly, who had recovered from the financial crisis with the help of new donors. "Margaret, I found another one who needs help. Bring them here, Mike. There's always room for those in need." Mike had learned that rescuing an abandoned animal was just the first step in a long and challenging journey. But he had also discovered that every hardship was worth it. Daisy's story became well known in the area. Mike started being approached by people who found abandoned animals and didn't know what to do. With Margaret's help, Mike created an informal rescue and adoption network that served several towns in the region. It wasn't a formal organization, just kind-hearted people willing to help. A year later, Mike got a call from Mark. "Mike, I have a surprise for you." "What is it?" "Daisy had puppies again and we want you to pick one to keep." Mike was moved. He had managed to buy a small house with a yard, finally fulfilling his dream of having a place where he could care for animals. "I'll take one. but only if you let me visit Daisy whenever I want. Of course, you've been part of her story from the beginning. Mike chose a little puppy that looked just like her mother, yellow fur, sweet eyes, and a calm temperament. What are you going to name her? Mark asked. Hope, Mike answered without hesitation. Little Hope grew up by Mike's side, joining him on many trips and rescues. She seemed to have inherited her mother's ability to sense when people or animals needed help. 2 years after Daisy's rescue, Mike had helped find homes for over 50 abandoned animals. His house had become a temporary shelter for dogs and cats in need. Margaret joked that Mike had become an angel for abandoned animals. He always replied that he was just doing what anyone with a heart would do. The difference is, you never give up, Margaret said, even when everything seems impossible. Mike had learned that saving an animal was actually a two-way street. Daisy had changed his life as much as he had changed hers. Before the rescue, Mike had been a lonely man, focused only on work and paying bills. After Daisy, he found a greater purpose and a network of friends united by their love for animals. Sharon, who used to complain about the dogs, now regularly donated food to Margaret's farm. Bob built little doghouses for the animals Mike rescued. Even Gertrude, the grumpy neighbor, changed her mind after witnessing an emotional adoption in their building. Mike, you do beautiful work, she said. One day. I'm sorry for being so difficult before. Mike's transformation inspired others. George, his boss, started allowing company truckers to transport rescued animals on their trips, as long as it was safe. The small rescue network grew organically. There were no bureaucracies or complicated paperwork, just a group of people, communicating by phone and helping each other. Mike kept traveling the American highways, but now with a sharper eye for abandoned animals. Hope always went with him, as if she knew she had an important mission. On one trip, Mike came across a situation that brought him back to the beginning. A pregnant dog was tied to a pole, crying desperately. I can't believe this is happening again, Mike murmured, stopping the truck. This time, Mike didn't hesitate. He knew exactly what to do and who to call. The dog went straight to Margaret's farm, where she received all the care she needed. Life gave me a second chance to do everything right from the start, Mike told Margaret. You've always done everything right, Mike. He just needed to learn that he couldn't do everything alone. Mike realized Margaret was right. During Daisy's rescue, he had tried to handle everything by himself and almost failed. Now, with a support network, each rescue became easier and more efficient. The new female dog had 4 healthy puppies. They all found loving homes in less than a month, thanks to the experience and connections Mike had built. Daisy continued to live happily with Mark's family. Mike visited her regularly and always got emotional seeing her run freely in the backyard, loved and carefree. Princess became an excellent mother, not only caring for her own puppies, but also helping Daisy with her new litters. Margaret's farm became a model in the region. Local veterinarians offered free care, pet stores made regular donations, and families from the city visited often to help with the animals. Mike never married again or had children of his own, but he discovered he had a huge family, made up of all the animals he'd helped and all the people he'd met along the way. Hope remained his faithful companion, inheriting her mother's intuition for finding animals in need. Together they formed an unbeatable team in rescuing abandoned animals. One Sunday morning, 5 years after Daisy's rescue, Mike received a call that deeply moved him. Mike, this is Patricia, Mark's wife. Hi Patricia, how are Daisy and Princess doing? They're doing well, but I called to share some news. My oldest son is doing a school project on unsung heroes. He chose you as his subject. Mike was speechless. He had never considered himself a hero, just someone doing what was right. He'd like to interview you for the project, Patricia continued. Can I put him on the phone? The boy, now 12, asked simple but profound questions about Mike's motivation for helping abandoned animals. Why did you save Daisy that day? Because she needed help and I was there to help. But a lot of people passed by her before you. Why did you stop? Mike thought for a moment before answering. I think Daisy chose me as much as I chose her. Sometimes life puts us in the right place at the right time to make a difference. After the interview, Mike reflected on how his life had changed. The lonely man who found Daisy on the highway, That day had become someone surrounded by purpose and meaningful connections. Hope, now 3 years old, slept at the foot of Mike's bed every night, a constant reminder that some encounters change our lives forever. Mike continued working as a truck driver, but now his colleagues knew him as the animal guy. Many called him when they found abandoned animals on the highways. The informal network had become a real force in the area. Hundreds of animals had been saved, treated, and placed in loving homes. Margaret, now 73, remained tireless in caring for the animals. The farm had expanded and welcomed veterinary students eager to learn about animal care. Mike, you know, all of this started with your stubbornness not to give up on Daisy, Margaret said during one of their conversations, and with your generosity in helping when we needed it most, Mike replied. The two had become close friends, united by their shared passion for helping animals in need. One autumn afternoon, Mike received a call that caught him completely off guard. "Hello, Mike, it's Mark." "Hi, Mark, everything okay?" "Mike, I need to tell you something important. Daisy is sick." Mike's heart raced. "What's wrong with her?" "The vet found a tumor. It's serious but operable." "The problem is that the surgery costs $15,000. Mike didn't hesitate for even a second. "Mark, I'll pay for the surgery." "Mike, that's a lot of money. Daisy gave me far more than $15,000 could ever buy. She gave me a purpose in life." Mike sold his car and took out a loan to pay for Daisy's surgery. It was an amount that would weigh on his budget for years, but he didn't care. The surgery was a success. Daisy recovered completely and went back to running and playing like before. When Mike went to visit her after the operation, Daisy greeted him with the same joy as the first day they met. It was as if she knew he had done it all out of love. "Thank you for saving my life again," she seemed to say with her sweet eyes. At that moment, Mike realized he had come full circle. The man who had saved an abandoned dog had been saved. By her too. Daisy lived 4 more happy and healthy years after the surgery. When she finally passed away at the age of 11, Mike was there to say goodbye. "Thank you for changing my life, girl," Mike whispered, petting her one last time. Princess, who had lost her mother, was depressed for weeks. Mike visited her regularly to comfort her and help her through the loss. Hope, who had known Daisy since she was a puppy, also felt her absence. For days, she searched the house for her adoptive grandmother, not understanding why she didn't return. Mike decided to create a memorial for Daisy at Margaret's farm. It was a simple plaque with her photo and the words, "Daisy, who taught me that saving a life can save ours too." The story of Daisy and Mike became legendary in the area. Parents told their children how an act of kindness could transform 2 lives. Margaret started an educational project at the farm, where children visited to learn about animal care and responsibility. The story of Mike and Daisy was always shared as an example of perseverance and love. Mike continued his rescue work until he was 70. Hope accompanied him on every mission, always loyal and dedicated. When he finally retired, Mike had directly helped rescue and find homes for over 200 animals. Indirectly, his network had saved thousands. On the day of his retirement, friends and acquaintances threw a surprise party at Margaret's farm. Many families who had adopted animals through Mike's network were there. "Mike, you changed all of our lives," said Mark, now with graying hair. "You taught our children about compassion and responsibility." Mike looked around and saw dozens of dogs and cats playing with their human families. All of them had been saved from lives of abandonment and suffering. "I'm the one who learned from you," Mike replied. "I learned that when we help others, we ourselves are transformed." Margaret, now 80 but still active, gave an emotional speech. "Mike, you proved that one person can make a difference, that an act of kindness can multiply endlessly." Hope, now a 12-year-old lady, stayed by Mike's side throughout the ceremony, just as she had all those years. That night, Mike went home reflecting on the incredible journey that had begun with a dog tied to a post on the highway. Daisy had been gone for 3 years, but her legacy lived on in every animal saved, every family formed, every lesson of love and perseverance. Mike picked up an old photo of Daisy with her newborn puppies and smiled. That scared, abandoned dog had become the inspiration for a transformation that touched hundreds of lives. "Thank you, Daisy," Mike murmured. "Thank you for showing me it's worth fighting for those who have no voice." Hope approached and rested her head on Mike's lap, as if understanding that he was thinking about the grandmother he had never met in person, yet whose love had shaped his entire life. Outside, the rain began to fall softly, washing over the highways where it had all begun, and where Mike knew other animals still waited for someone brave enough to stop and help. The story of Mike and Daisy had ended, but the cycle of love and rescue they started would continue forever, passed from heart to heart, from life to life, until no more abandoned animals remained on the roads of the world. The end now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your heartfelt words in the comments. Do you think Mike made the right choice by stopping to help Daisy? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like this video and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other touching stories.